when the Industrial Revolution happened, for 100 years, from 1750 to 1850, things were just terrible for even the English workers. Forget about the worker in India. And basically, they lost their jobs, their wages were tiny and stagnant, and the working conditions were brutal in those factories. The average life expectancy of a mill worker in Manchester was 32 years, well below the English average. And what changed that was new legislation, new laws, new institutions, such as, for instance, the Factories Act and the Public Health Act, which regulated what are the working conditions like. There was the act that banned child labor in factories, and it mandated compulsory education for children. It recognized labor unions. So not until all these things were put in place did the benefits get more equitably distributed to larger numbers of workers. So today, with AI, we have the same challenges. If unchecked, it's going to make some people incredibly wealthy. People who own capital, people who own the technology, people who own the data. But for the rest of us, life is going to be brutally bad. It's going to concentrate power in these platforms and create a generally non-level playing field. So we need to imagine what are those institutions and laws that will create a more equitable and just society. So there's some things I can think of. For instance, we have to completely rethink and redo education. So taking a test and getting a degree for a job that doesn't exist no longer matters. What we need to do is help young people build capabilities that they can then use to go build things. And not once, but lifelong. So this whole education learning thing has to be lifelong. And you have to have this infrastructure that allows someone like you and me to, throughout our lives, acquire new skills. The second thing we have to deal with is power, particularly worker power. And that doesn't mean unions, because the situation today is each worker is going to be on their own. Okay, so somebody will be a freelancer who's making videos and creating content. Somebody else is a gig worker doing consulting. So what we need is a platform and legislation that allows for collective agency for all these dispersed workers, atomized workers. Somebody has to imagine that and create the legislation for it and so forth, because only then can you negotiate with the people who are controlling the technology and the data and the capital. We need legislation and institutions that deliver portable safety nets. What are safety nets? If I lose my job, there's some sort of unemployment insurance till I find a new job, right? Or some amount of funding I can get, or scholarships I can get for reskilling, learning new things, some sort of universal basic income. And these things have to be associated with the individual and not the company or the employer. So as you move around, you carry these benefits with you. And then you need also access to public AI infrastructure. Today, all of us are beneficiaries of what's called DPI, India's digital public infrastructure, which is Aadhaar, UPI, and so on. So we have to imagine what that looks like for AI. How can anybody anywhere access AI tools, compute, and so on? Then you need local entrepreneurial ecosystems of the sorts that we're creating in game. So if you want to build something, you know where to go. You can plug into an incubator and accelerator. You can get access to capital, markets, mentoring, and so on. So I think that's the nature of institutions and legislation that we need to imagine and create. And are we doing it at speed? Absolutely not. We've not even begun a conversation around these things. Meanwhile, the technology is moving at some extraordinary speed. And this is why I am helping create something called the Institute for Human Flourishing, which will try and do exactly this.